Okay, one of the cool things that we get to do, and we started doing this a few years ago at the Talent Summit, that we get to move into is I love that we have the opportunity to have women share their individual stories. Because I think hearing the stories about how constant change, this environment we're living in, impacts the individual, it's so authentic. And it helps us appreciate either where we're at or where we're going or see other things that we might not have seen. So we asked some incredible women, there's 6 women, who are gonna do these rapid fire stories about how constant change has impacted them in different aspects of their career. And I really appreciate their braveness in standing on the stage and sharing something that is a little bit more personal just versus the business message about what the impact has been on them individually and the decisions and challenges that they've made. I think got the first one up. So the first one is Janay Jespersen, I think SVP of Commerce Hub, and I'm going to welcome her to the stage, and she's going to share her story. So please join me in welcoming her.
Good morning, everyone. As someone who comes from a remote organization, speaking to people in little boxes is way easier than getting up here and speaking to you all in person today. But I'm honored to be here. And I'm going to be talking to you about the topic of burnout. First, I'm going to share with you a story of 4 women. Then I'm going to share my story. And then I'm going to leave you with 3 tips to help you avoid burnout in the future. So, as an HR executive, I do a lot of recruiting for other executives. And for the first time in my career, in the last 6 to 9 months, I started to hear from female executives, I'm not working right now. I don't care what the economics of this offer is, what the role is, I'm not interested, I'm burned out. And the first time I heard this, I thought, wow, I really hope this woman gets the respite that she deserves and that she needs and comes back into the workforce because we need her. And then it happened again, and a third, and a 4th time. And I thought, what in the world is going on? This is insane. And I also started to think, what does that kind of burnout look like? And what would that burnout look like for me that would make me stop working? And how do I avoid that and make sure I help my team avoid that as well? Well, it's not hard to see why these women might feel this way. We all feel this way, right? It's like someone stuck their hand into our lives, turned the volume up to 11 in the last 3 years, and they've left it there. And everything from a global pandemic to the first female recession to politics in the workplace to social injustice, and the list goes on and on and on. And we are on all the time. I heard someone say the phrase, rent is due on this life every single day. Well, I tell you that story to tell you my story. So one of the things about me, one of my values, one of my principles, one of the ways that I choose to operate is that I show up. I am the friend that says, I will be to your barbecue, and you know I'm gonna be there. I am the coworker who will fly across the country to be to your father's funeral, just so you know that I showed up for you. And it's deeply ingrained in who I am. It probably originates from some past childhood trauma, I'm sure. But it runs through everything that I do. So, and I think it's helped me be successful in my career. It's one of the things that's been a tool to help propel me. Well, as many of you have experienced in other tech companies, my company recently went through a round of layoffs. And as an HR person, there's a big body of work that comes with that. And it's important that we get it right. And it's important that we get it right because these impacted people are our friends, they're our coworkers, they're our colleagues, and we want to make sure we treat them in the best way possible. So leading up to this, I work at a global, highly complex organization. And leading up to this, I was working 18-hour days, 7 days a week. My mother-in-law's here, she can attest to this. And I was really burning the candle at both ends. And on the day of these layoffs, I woke up at 3 a.m. to get my day started, and I was sick. And I'm always sick because I have 2 little kids and they bring me home all of their germs. But this was a little different. I had a really bad earache, but I was going to show up this day. I was going to show up for these people that were impacted, and I was going to show up for my team. And so I did. And by the end of the day, I was in so much pain that I dropped from a call, drove over to the Instacare. Me and half of Salt Lake County met there together. And the doctor said, Janay, you have a terrible ear infection. How long have you let this go? Gave me some meds, sent me home. That evening, my eardrum ruptured and I lost my hearing. So the next morning I get up and I schlepped myself up the stairs and I showed up again. And I sat in that chair and I showed up a little differently that day. I showed up as a shell of myself. And as I sat in that chair, I thought, oh, there it is. There's that feeling that those women felt. There's that burnout. I've pushed it too far. I've gone too far. And as I sat there, I thought, what message am I telling my team by showing up in this way? The message I thought I was telling them was, I'm here for you no matter what. I've got your back. But really what I was telling them is, I expect you to show up in this way, right? So it's not a healthy behavior. So I ended up going to the doctor. ENT says to me, Janay, I think your hearing will come back, but I can't say for sure. And this is going to be a long road, and it's going to take some time, and you need to let your body heal. And so this is not the first time in my career that I've failed to hold boundaries. Trust me, it's not. But this is the first time that the stakes were so incredibly high for me. The fact that I could lose my hearing, which was so important to my well-being. For those of you who suffer from hearing loss, or maybe you've had this happen to you, losing your hearing is so incredibly debilitating. I couldn't hear my kids' voices, the pitch, the tone of their voice. I couldn't hear them. And even something as simple as standing in a lobby, I couldn't tell which elevator was dinging at me. I was like, what? And it was really challenging and really impacted my mental health. So every morning, I would wake up and I would roll over, and the very first thing I would do is I would check on my hearing. I would rub my fingers next to my ear to see if I could hear that friction. And that was my reminder that day that I had to show up for myself first. And I was still healing, and I needed to make sure that I was prioritizing myself. And then one day I rolled over, checked my hearing, and I could hear again. Slowly my hearing came back and it returned to me. But I was left with this incredible lesson, something that was so high stakes, but I didn't end up suffering from that consequence. And now my burnout happened over a fairly short period of time, but burnout is sneaky, and sometimes it happens over a long period of time, and you don't always know when it's coming on, and you don't want to have to pay that high price. So I'm going to leave you with 3 tips on how to avoid burnout. And the first is to figure out, what is that finger next to your ear? How do you check in with yourself in the morning to see where you're at, how you need to prioritize yourself that day? Number 2, I want you to think about how you're showing up for your teams, on your families and your friends. Are you showing up as a shell of yourself? Are you showing up as your whole self? And in the way that you show up, what message are you sending them? And then the third is that you can live in your value system. You can show up for your sister and your neighbor and your boss and your team as long as you are showing up for yourself first. Now, as I wish those women in the beginning of my story the respite that they need, I wish that for you, because we need every single one of you, and we need each other, and we deserve to show up as our whole selves. Thank you.